Hello and welcome to the Good Boxing Podcast. As I mentioned before, I really wanted to kind of make sure I do these in-person interviews and really kind of touch on the sweet science with just not my own voice, but kind of add another voice. So today I have a very special guest. She's out of Florida. She was one of the first supporters of the podcast, and she's been very helpful with the expansion of the podcast and kind of giving me ideas and whatnot how to do this. And I just wanted to introduce Evelyn. Evelyn, feel free to take the floor and kind of tell us about yourself.
All right. Hi, everybody. I feel so honored to be here. I really love the podcast and I just love the concept. And it's funny. I can't remember if I found you through, I know you interviewed Kevin, right? Kevin Gleason.
Yeah, so the way it kind of happened was Kevin follows my other account, my main account,
Mhm.
like my original training account at Good Boxing Coach. And then I think I had commented on Kevin's thing, and then I think you saw that account over there. I reached out to you via the other account, and then I ended up hitting you up on the Good Boxing Podcast, and then you kind of found me over here, which was kind of cool because when I saw like your strategy, kind of more or less what you were doing, I saw that you were very smart in terms of social, and you gave me a lot of good advice in the beginning. It was very helpful because in the beginning when you have nobody like following you. I remember I had like eight
Yeah.
followers, and for someone to have like a lot of followers and actually follow you and start with you from the beginning is like very good in terms of confidence and building up. But continue. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no. So here go my dogs. I told you. I already
No,
was
it's
like,
totally fine. I ra- I
and
rather it
she,
be natural, and I could take it out,
yeah.
but
No, yeah, but I remember finding it, and I think during the time I was looking for a boxing podcast because there isn't
mm,
that many.
no.
I actually used to be a co-host of a MMA podcast, and hold on, come here. Is it
No
okay?
worries.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Chloe. I'm gonna bring her up. Chloe, come here. I'm telling you, she
Yeah, I'll
won't
grab
stop.
mine and we'll make it a dog podcast. It's all good. Hold on. Come on, Luna.
This is crazy.
RJ needs to get the. It's all good, buddy. There you go. So I'll put mine in the photo too, and we're it's all good.
I definitely jinxed it because the Amazon package came through.
You called it too.
I was
Beforehand.
like, yeah, I remember I ordered something. I was like, let's hope they don't come in the middle of this.
No,
All
it's
right, but
totally
they're all
fine.
done. She's right here. All right, but as I was saying, I was looking for a boxing podcast because I couldn't find any good ones or any for that particular matter. And I used to be a co-host of a MMA podcast. And the podcast, unfortunately, we don't record it anymore. But when we were recording, it was doing really well. But I really am a big fan of just podcasts in general. Obviously, fight podcasts because I'm a fighter myself, and
Yeah.
I just I'm a big fan of the boxing world and the MMA world. So I'm really happy that I found you. And that's why I said I feel so honored and like I'm really excited to be here in one of your shows.
Well, I'm very happy you were able to come by because another reason why we kind of like connected and would connect and talk was I know you had mentioned that you were boxing out of Florida, and I had shared with you that like, hey, over here in New York, there's not really like any sparring, there's really nothing going on. And then like when I was sharing with you some of my like sparring videos and whatnot, you were like, wow, it's kind of cool over there in New York. Like, because for me, primarily I train like a lot of women, and
Mhm.
women's boxing specifically is like one of my favorite sports. I'm kind of annoyed, and that's something I touched on today in one of my episodes about how like the sport is so different in terms of rules, like the time, everything is kind of
Yeah.
different. But it's rare that you find like women who spar and kind of like really about the boxing life. So it was kind of cool when I stumbled upon your page that you were in a bunch of different avenues, but specifically I see that you're actually in the gym and you're actually kind of boxing. So I thought it would be cool to have like a female presence, someone who's, active, sparring. And then another reason too was you had mentioned that you were going to fight. And I thought it would be perfect just to kind of get someone that, is, I don't want like a celebrity who's trying to like fight or anything like that. I just want to talk to someone who's like in the boxing world, does it because you seem to like it because it's a lot of hard work,
I
and
love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You have to love it in order to kind of do it. Um, so I thought it'd be cool to get you on the pod and just kind of chit chat. So do you want to talk about more or less your experience, how you got into boxing, um, and like your overall feeling for the fight, or yeah.
Yeah, of course. I have a really interesting story, I think, of how I started. Like, I know I was born to be a fighter. Um, I actually, since I was like 5 years old, like, okay, so I'm Mexican, and obviously, as a Mexican, boxing is huge in the culture, and in my family growing up, it was really, really big. My uncles,
Mhm.
my uncles are huge boxing fans. One of my uncles used to actually fight, but being
Cool.
that my family was just big in watching boxing, we would always get together and watch like the big fights. And I just remember being young, and actually I asked my uncle this the other day, because I just remember being really, really young and just watching boxing, and I always said I wanted to fight. I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that.
Mhm.
And the one uncle who used to fight, he said, "You really want to do that?" I was like, "Yes." And I asked him the other day, I was like, "How old was I when I told you?" Like, I thought I was like a teenager when I was telling him this. I just remember being young. I wasn't sure how old. He's like, "No, you were like 5 years old telling me that you wanted to fight." Until
Wow.
finally, I guess when I reached my teen years, I kept saying it. I kept, every time we would get together, I want to fight, I want to fight, I want to fight. And I
Mhm.
always been a very girly tomboy growing up, but I always just was so interested in fighting, and just I loved it. So my uncle said, "Do you want me to train you?" Because I would not stop bugging him and like
Oh, that's cute.
telling everybody that I wanted to fight. So he started training me in his backyard, and he had the mitts and like a boxing bag, a heavy bag, and we
Mhm.
just started working on like basic stuff, and eventually he was able to get me into a gym. And that in itself, like, I grew up with a single mom of 4 kids, so my mom never put us in any sports, because one, she couldn't afford it, and
Yeah,
two, she was always working day and night to provide for 4 kids on her own. So like,
that's
even to
rough.
get there, I went above and beyond to make sure I was at the gym. I remember starting going to the gym when I was like probably the ending of 8th grade, middle school, and I would have to beg for rides, beg my uncle, then beg my mom. I would beg her to pick me up just to be able to, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
get into that gym. And then when I finally got into high school, the gym that I was at was just a few blocks away, probably want to say like a 20-minute walk. So classes didn't start till like 5:30, and I would get off of school at like 2:30, but I would still just walk to the gym and spend all those hours in the gym throughout my entire high school career. Now
Hold
the
hold on one second, Evelyn. I
Yeah,
apologize. Give me 1 second.
what was I
And
saying?
you were saying that you were at the gym, you were with your uncle, and you were kind of
Oh,
you're here. I see you.
okay. Sorry.
No worries. So you were saying
Oh
you were
yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
at the gym
So
and
yeah, so then I would just, I spent hours on my high school career. I would just, because I didn't get a car till I was like my senior year of high school, was 18 years old. But so those, I just made so many sacrifices. I would walk to the gym, stay there, train. And I started off as a boxer. And then eventually I started doing jujitsu, because one of the coaches there would always ask me, and I'm just like, no, like all I do is
yeah.
box. Okay, I'm not doing that on the ground. But
Yeah,
eventually got me into it later on down the road. But you know, I feel like I tell people, like, I really regret not competing when I was younger, because I've always just loved it. I've always been talented, and I think I would be I would be somewhere else in my career. But I try not to like think about that too much. And I just feel like God's timing is perfect. And the reason that I
mm,
never really competed was because there was no like role models that I could look up to. Like, I just didn't see any women fighting. I
which is
also
true. Yeah,
knew,
100%.
right. And I also knew, just being there, I knew that when you fight, you can't half as this shit. You can't,
No, you can't.
sorry to curse.
No, you could
I don't
curse.
mean to
It's
curse.
fine.
Okay. I was like,
It's
okay.
totally fine. Yeah. I'm not, I'm
Like,
still
yeah,
really
you,
small. So in terms of monetization, I rather just
okay.
keep like raw interviews and kind of just get like good content. So don't worry about it. Feel free to
Okay. Okay.
say
Okay.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
I curse frequently, as you know, on the pod. So
Okay. Yeah.
it's totally fine.
All right. So I just knew, like, you can't half as it, because fighting is real deal. You can't just be halfway in. So that was another thing. I felt like I also wanted to go to school just because I always thought, just being my mom did so much for us. I wanted to make her proud, and I thought that was like the route to go. And so I tried to focus as well on school, but I always stayed in the gym. And on top of other life struggles that I've been through, which that's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of
I
factors
understand.
that's why I just feel like I just have to trust God's timing, because even when I was, in my younger years, when I was fighting and just going to school, I was going through a lot of things. But again, I just understood that you can't half-ass it. And I had other goals as well. I also think I kind of just limited myself, honestly, for a long time. I just felt like, well, because I got to focus on one thing. Like, I always thought that there's no way that I could fight and do this and go to school, which is the dumbest thing ever. But at the same time, I didn't have nobody to look up to as
And
far
you're
as
young
like,
too, so
yeah, I
don't
was
be too hard
young.
on yourself. Yeah. I mean, you're
Right,
still
right.
pretty young too now. So
Yeah, 25 years old. I just turned 25. And so when I first finally started to decided to compete, which was a couple of years ago, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, that's when I really was starting to take it more serious. Just, because when you spar and when you just train, it's completely different when you're really applying the boxing, skills to like a real fight, not just for a
exactly,
workout.
the stakes are way way different. Like
Exactly. And
it's
that's when
way different.
way different. And I was just learning that and applying that, because also, honestly, there's a lot of bad habits that I had just from train for a workout. I developed a lot of bad habits that, when a real fight is like, you can't do that. But the skills were there, so we just sharpened up everything and started to try to find fights. And if that was already like really hard, because me and my coach, we went to so many tournaments, and either there was no girls or nobody in my weight
Exactly.
class, too big, too small. And we went through a lot of training camps, and just I was able to get one boxing fight. That was in 2019, and it was a
Okay.
really good fight. Unfortunately, that I felt like I won, but lost it to split decision. That's why I'm like, man,
Yeah, but
I'm done letting these fights go to the judges. Right now, my head, I'm like a different fighter. I'm so like, you have no idea how hungry I am, because I'm like, I can't let this go to the judges anymore, because we'll talk about my MMA fight, because I'll tell you how I got into the whole MMA thing. So as I was doing the boxing, I was still doing jujitsu as well. And after that, I realized, I'm like, all right, so we got one boxing fight. There's more opportunity in MMA, especially down in South Florida. So, I knew a lot of girls who did either like kickboxing or were doing MMA. So I was like, let me just try MMA. I've already done kickboxing. I do jujitsu. I'm good on the ground as well. My hands are, I have good hands. So like, let's just try to put it all together. I always wanted to try MMA fight. I don't want to ever live like, what if I would have done it? So as I was training for my fight, my MMA fight, 20 days before, I ended up breaking my leg.
ooh,
So
damn.
that, yeah, broke my leg, tib, fib, had 2 surgeries, had to learn how to walk all over again. It was really devastating injury. And I don't know, a lot of people said I wouldn't be back. A lot of people doubted me. Like, it was a really, really gruesome injury. But I always knew that shit just made me more hungry. Like, I just wanted to keep doing it. I was like, I don't know what was wrong with me. I just wanted to keep fighting. As soon as I was able to walk again, I was in the gym, just shadow boxing and just working on it, on everything. And honestly, I feel like that kind of helped me fall in love with just boxing all over again. Because obviously, right away, I didn't kick. I was mainly just working on, boxing. I wasn't doing no ground. It was all boxing. And I really did fall in love with boxing. I'm just like, damn, like, I really want to box. And so I did a boxing fight last year in September, and I won that. Did
Nice.
really, really good. And then still try to look for more boxing fights. Obviously, the whole pandemic as well. So not only did I come back
Yes.
from an injury, I was training, in the middle of this pandemic, which is really hard, because at one point we were shut down right here in
Yeah.
Florida. And So that was tough. But came back, and just even events, trying to find more boxing fights has been a little bit harder. So this MMA fight opportunity came up recently, and I just took it because, again, I was like, man, why not?
You wanted to stay ready. You're
I
training,
wanted to stay ready,
you want to
stay active.
practice.
Exactly.
I totally understand
So
that. Sorry to interrupt you. Um, Talking about like finding fights, and I just kind of wanted to like share my experience in terms of like frustration with getting fights,
yeah.
especially in women's boxing. It is very, very difficult to get fights. And like when you said the pandemic, last year I had this girl I was gonna compete in the Golden Gloves. We trained like 3 months. We cut from like 130 down to 112.
Oh,
We were
wow.
ready. Yeah, we were so ready. And then the week of is when the whole shutdown happened. So the whole tournament was canceled. Everything was
Good.
canceled. I knew the tournament probably wouldn't have happened, but all I wanted was just let's get one fight, because you put all that time in, you put all that
Yeah.
work in, and it's just like, damn. So I totally get that, because like you said, when you go to tournaments and you try to get these fights, and I've seen it firsthand too, because I've been around boxing my whole life. My dad was a trainer, my uncle's a trainer, my cousin's a trainer. We're like all trainers. So we would go to fights, and my dad's girls would like get a bye or a walkover because someone's overweight, or like the girl doesn't show up and there's no more other fighters. So it's like,
Hmm.
I totally understand that whole thing you got going. And in terms of the judges, I've seen some just the judging in amateur boxing is crazy. Um, One person could be completely dominating. You never know what they're looking for, and
Right.
like the criterion is just constantly changing. You get people that like certain things, and then I don't know where they like something else. Standing eight counts don't really mean much. Like you can give a girl two standing eight counts, and then she lands one combination in the last round and she wins. So it's quite frankly outrageous. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
also another thing I wanted to kind of mirror to you too is I kind of come from a boxing family, so I totally understand that whole like you're around it, you want to be around it, you want to do it. And that's kind of how I got into boxing too, because my grandfather was a boxer, my dad was a boxer, my uncle, like everyone
That's
is always around
awesome.
boxing. You're always watching, you're always talking about fights. And I just kind of want to, that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I too was looking for like a podcast that
Yeah.
can give you that feeling that you have like, hey, I'm talking to someone that, really is following and what's going on. And uh, I never speak badly about any other podcast, or I don't want to talk badly about anything, but I just
Hmm.
felt like there was a market where I'm not really about like the lifestyle. I'm not, I don't want to talk about like the culture around the boxing. Like I want to actually talk about like the fights. I want to like give a
Right.
perspective where like, who do you think is going to win? Why do you think they're going to win? And not just say like some generic, like generalities about the fight game,
Right.
because you can get that from anywhere. You can get that from ESPN. You can get that. So that's kind of why I like started this whole thing, and I'm kind of glad you get that same vibe, because that's exactly what I
Yes.
was looking for. Um, so that's pretty much what I got to say, and I kind of wanted to hear more about the MMA fight that you were just going to tell us about.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, like, I guess I'll tell you about the preparation for that, because coming off the boxing fight, before that last year, it was strictly boxing. I did very little sparring. Like, a lot of the training I did for that last fight was at home.
Mm,
It's crazy because it's like in 2019 I was in a quarantine because I had a broken leg and I was
yeah,
not going to
that's
the gym and doing nothing. So it sucked when the whole thing happened, and everything was shut down. But at the end of the day, it's like I was just thankful to be able to walk again and run and just do things, because it sucks when you can't. Like, I wasn't able to. So it was
yeah.
just, I didn't take it for granted. I was like, you know what? I got outside. I got a bag in my garage. I'm just gonna do it. Like, even though the gym was shut down, and Florida did open up a lot sooner than most places, so I was very grateful for that. Went in
Mm,
there, did what I could, and then had this fight. And then after that, that's when I was like, all right, continue to stay active, sparring, training. And then I found out that there was an opponent for me for an MMA fight, and that's when I started to just work more on the ground and, kicks again, because I was barely kicking and barely on the ground. So we just
Hmm.
kind of went in there and just put everything all together, prepared for this fight. I'm not gonna lie, I did have a really bad weight cut this time around, which I usually don't have trouble doing. But it didn't make me, I was able to rehydrate, and I felt good going into the fight.
Yeah.
I really felt like I controlled the cage the whole time. Um, I gotta rewatch the fight, so I still haven't rewatched it. But my coach would tell me if I would have lost. Like, he would have straight up told me. He said I won that fight. So I don't know what the judges saw, because during the fight, like, the punches she was bleeding. She was,
Yeah, I
taking these
saw a
hits.
couple
I'm
of
not.
the photos you posted, and like you were cracking up the knuckles. It looked like like her nose was bleeding in the photo, and I'm like, damn, that was a pretty good shot.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. She has a chin. Like, that girl had a chin, and one thing I knew about her was that she comes forward. I was looking for the knockout the whole night though, because she comes forward with her hands down. And unfortunately, like I said, I couldn't. I just didn't get the finish. I feel like if there was one more round, I definitely would have, because the girl
Yeah.
was gassed after the third round. And my conditioning is amazing. I
Hmm.
think one thing about me is I'm a rounds fighter, so it sucks that the amateurs is only like three
Yeah,
2 minute rounds,
it's quick.
but it's quick, super
Yeah, it's
fast, and
super
it's like,
quick.
it sucks because I wish it was a little bit longer, but I'm gonna work my way up there to eventually go pro and then have the opportunity to go more rounds if need be. But
I was actually just talking to my fighter. We're actually gonna fight in June in Atlanta, just in case New York doesn't
nice.
open. And I was telling her, I'm like, look, you don't get it. Like, in sparring, you have time to just kind of like settle in and like feel the person. And then once you get the rhythm, you're gonna be fine. But 2 minute rounds, you don't get how fast it's so fast. It's like by the time you're like, oh, I got this, girl, half the fight is done.
Done.
And that's the bad part about the amateur system, because they don't let you settle in. And it's
Yeah,
it's good because it does allow like a little more competition, given that, like, hey, look, if you're not experienced going that many minutes in a fight when that adrenaline's pumping, and it's really draining, the adrenaline
yeah,
dump
yeah.
is crazy. And like, I get it's for the safety, but that 2 minutes is such, like, when you're practicing,
Right.
you can go forever in practice, and then before you know it in the fight, it's like, fuck, what did I do? Like, I didn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
no, for real. The MMA ones were 3 minutes, and I felt like they went by so fast. And yeah, I don't know, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, even like in the pros, like with the women's fight that they had,
Uh,
the pay-per-view one, like Clarissa could have, she got a knockout if they were 3 minutes, I
I,
think. Like,
I agree. I agree.
right?
I know. I totally agree. I literally made an
uh,
episode today, um, basically why, like, I love women's boxing. Clear. I train women fighters and
yeah,
and whatnot. But it drives me crazy because I hate it, given that it's not even the same rules. Like, just make it the same rules. I
right.
get the amateurs, fine. You want to keep it 2 minutes, fine. But you got Clarissa Shields, literally one of the best fighters in the world, fighting for 20 minutes in an undisputed championship match. Like, what?
Yeah, no,
It,
I agree.
it's like, come on, before you know it, the walkout was longer than the fight, right?
Right.
Yeah, the walkout the walkout was like 20 minutes, right? And
uh,
then like the fight is 20 minutes. So I'm like, what are we doing here? This is supposed to be like a big event. It's a pay-per-view. Like, I get it, you want to put on a show, but how is it that the walkout is just as long as the fight? And yeah, I
no,
think
I agree.
yeah, I think there needs to be some sort of either new organization that comes out with new rules, or just something, because something's going on where they just need to change the rules, because it's also affecting their pay. Um,
Yeah.
it's like tremendously affecting the sport with the rules, because the promoter could be like, "Oh, you only fight for 20 minutes. We're not going to pay you like you fight, like for a regular fight." So it's kind of, in my opinion, just not a very good system right now. But I
Right.
did have a question. You had mentioned that you were Mexican, right? So
Yeah.
I know I spoke to you about this before, right? But what'd you think about the Burchelt and Valdez fight? Because I know that fight was
Oh,
humongous in Mexico. It was humongous in the boxing world in general. What'd you think about it?
oh, I thought that was a great fight. Valdez definitely did what he had to do. I think I told you I had Burchell, right? I think
Yeah,
you
I
had,
remember.
who'd you have, Valdez, right?
Yeah, I had Valdez, but I've been
You
wrong so
did.
many. I've been wrong so much lately that I'm not even gonna gloat because I was wrong about Marinez. I was wrong about Luke Campbell versus Ryan Garcia. I was wrong about that too. So I'm not even gonna take the Valdez victory.
Yeah. No, I thought it was a great fight. Obviously, like all my family was super excited to watch that. It just felt good to just be Mexican that day for sure.
Yeah, man.
Because it's definitely something about the Mexicans in boxing. Like we have it in our blood or something because
Exactly.
freaking
Nothing better.
warriors, both of them. I do feel though that that fight probably should have been stopped earlier, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he was
really do.
he
But
was getting it.
man, Bertel is a freaking warrior to continue after that. What was it, the fourth round? And he was just stumbling and like he took so much damage. But you know, he's a banger. He goes toe to toe with his opponents, and I feel like Valdez just did what he had to do and like outbox him and you know get the victory. And he did that. I thought it was a great fight.
Do you think Valdez should fight Shakur Stevenson next, or who do you think he should fight next?
Um, I did see that he called out Vargas, and he had agreed to fight Stevenson. And then I think the following day he had called somebody else out, Vargas. So I don't know. I feel like I would be interested in watching him fight Shakur Stevenson. There's a lot of hype around that.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. I would really like to see that fight. Shakur, certainly talented, but my thing with Shakur is he's all hype on. I mean, right now he has no resume. He hasn't really fought
mm,
anybody, and I think it's a perfect test. Like,
right.
hey, you think you want a belt? Come for it. And Valdez, you can say whatever you want about Valdez. You can say he didn't look good prior to this fight with Burchelt, but Valdez is about it, man. He puts in the work, and with Eddie Reynoso in his corner,
Right.
you really don't know what he can do yet. I mean, I feel like he's just getting started, to be honest with you. Um,
Yeah, no, definitely. He's definitely is. And like you said, he has Eddie on his team and like he looked really good in his last fight and just um also not to mention Stevenson had called him out before. So it'd be just a great like opportunity for Valdez to be like, look, I'm not ducking you, but let's
mm,
fight. And you know, it'd be great for both. So hopefully that does happen though. I really do hope. I would love to see that fight.
same here,
Um
same here. What'd you think about sticking on the Mexicans in boxing? What'd you think about the Canelo and Yildirim fight?
I thought that it went how I originally thought it was gonna
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So that fight was the day before my fight, and it was down here in Miami. So if I didn't have a fight the next day, I would have definitely been out there just to witness Canelo live. You know, that's like a dream. But I think it went exactly how I figured it would go. So I mean, just shout out to that guy for stepping in there with the number one pound for pound fighter.
Yeah, he got. I mean, I know he spars with Canelo and all that stuff, but I like how Canelo was like, "Hey, man, this isn't sparring. I'm gonna dominate you. I'm gonna beat your ass, and then I'm just gonna get out of here to fight Billy Joe."
Facts. I was gonna ask you too. Well, you know, speaking of Canelo and stuff, I
Mhm,
think Canelo. A lot of people have some negative things to say about him as far as like him taking these fights. He knows this is like an easy payday,
mhm,
and personally, how I feel about it is, I think since he's fought Mayweather, he's gotten um better as a fighter and as a businessman. So I think he has like the right to pick and choose kind of like his fights, get the payday. But I do think he needs to fight somebody that like, you know, is gonna put him to the test.
mhm.
And what do you think about that? Because I know a lot of people have negative things like, oh, he's not really the best because he does all his like, just picks easy fights for him. What do you think about that?
Um, well, I kind of get both sides in the sense that one, I feel like Canelo, since he fought the first Triple G fight, has had a very, very hard schedule, right? He fought Triple G twice. He
Yeah.
fought Callum Smith. He moved up to fight Rocky Fielding, which was an easy fight. He
Hmm.
made it look easy, but if you look at it on paper, he moved up to 168 pounds for the first time, right? Um, to me, this Yildirim fight, given that he told us he was going to fight Billy Joe, and it kind of was like he wanted a big fight, I kind of give him a pass for this fight for keeping the mandatory, right? Because you have to keep your belt, you have to kind
True.
of fight whoever you got to fight, stay ready, stay active, and then you can go on and give us what we want. Because we want who? We want Billy Joe, we want David Benavidez, we want Caleb Plant, right? Those are the kind of the guys we
Yeah.
want to see him test himself against. Um, some people are saying Charlo and he's ducking Andrade. I'm sorry. I just kind of feel like both of those guys really haven't fought at the caliber of Canelo's like level.
Hmm.
They haven't fought pay-per-view fighters. They haven't, they're not really that big of a draw. And I get at this point in Canelo's career, you have to maximize earnings and you kind of got to pick and choose more or less who you're fighting in order to sell to the company who is going to pay you because he gets paid a lot of money. Like, let's be honest.
True.
Um,
Yeah.
And with the zone, they want him to fight certain people that are gonna do what? Like bring revenue, get subscribers, get buzz going around. So I don't think Canelo's fought the top, but at the same time, in this particular case, I don't think it was that bad for him to fight Yildirim. I know people were like not they were kind of upset about the fight because it went the way we thought it was gonna go. But
Hmm.
Canelo's fighting 4 times this year. When have we ever seen that? Like
True.
he fought in December against Callum Smith, which he was off for a while. His first fight via like even after COVID, he fought the one of the guys that a lot of people thought could maybe beat him. The guy was 6'4", 168 pounds, power puncher. People thought the kid could actually win. And he dominated him, right?
Dominated. Yeah.
So then you fight Yildirim to stay busy because you don't want to go into a fight rusty against Billy Joe Saunders. Like say what you want,
Right.
Billy Joe is a quality opponent. I would
Yes.
prefer the fight truthfully to be at 160 because Billy Joe at 160 has looked a lot more spectacular in my opinion. But in this particular case, if he's promising us Billy Joe, fine, fight Yildirim, stay busy, stay active, um, and then give us Billy Joe in May, which he's doing on Cinco de Mayo. That's a huge fight. You got
Yeah.
arguably one of the biggest UK stars outside of Anthony Joshua and Billy Joe Saunders, where the UK boxing is huge. Like people love boxing, right?
Yeah.
So imagine Cinco de Mayo weekend, you got Canelo fighting Billy Joe, continent versus continent. And in boxing, like people don't like to say it, but nationalism is a big thing. It's
Yeah.
what sells fights. That's why people like seeing the Puerto Rican versus the Mexican. They like seeing um, country versus country. Um, I remember
No, absolutely.
Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. You had an Irish guy versus an Italian. Like they, the
Yeah.
nationalism
Yeah.
sells the fights. So I think that fight is perfect for May. And then in September, he's saying he's going to fight Caleb Plant to unify and become undisputed. I like the vision. I feel like if fighters are a little more honest with us, um, people would be a little more lenient upon what they're trying to do. And I felt like Canelo was transparent. I felt like he told us what he wanted to do. And look, you know how this is. You can't fight 100 killers all the time. Like, it's not fair. Like, you have to develop yourself. Canelo's developing still. You see him getting better and better each fight. Why can't he get a fight that he can kind of like practice what he's learning, get better, get sharp for Billy Joe? Because Billy Joe is going to be a hard fight. So that's
Yeah.
kind of,
No, I agree. I agree with you.
but
I definitely do.
I also understand the other side where Yildirim put up very little resistance, but people don't realize if he tried, people are like, "Oh, he didn't try." If he tried, he would have just got knocked down in one round. It didn't like Yildirim tried. He did his best and he just got outclassed. And Canelo's showing
Yeah.
that he's a level above everyone else, and that's why I feel like he is the pound for pound 100%.
Hmm. Absolutely. So what do you think will be the outcome in this Billy Joe Canelo?
Um, uh, I'm a really big Billy Joe fan. He's my guy. Like, I've rode with him a few times in fights where he was like against Chris Eubank Jr. Everyone was on Chris Eubank, and I went for Billy Joe. Against David Lemieux, they thought Lemieux was going to kill Billy Joe, and Billy Joe won.
Yeah.
I want to ride with Billy Joe, but Canelo is just on another planet right now. I will watch again, and kind of as I get closer, maybe I'll change my opinion. But how can anyone go against Canelo right now? Like,
No, I agree.
you can't. I mean, the guys that give him the most problems, Lara was a southpaw, right? So Billy Joe's a
Hmm.
southpaw. Um, Power punchers, really big guys aren't going to do it, and Billy Joe is kind of a slick southpaw, very similar to Erislandy Lara, but I just don't see where Canelo is gonna lose this fight. Um, as of right now, I just can't think of it, to be honest with you. So I'm going Canelo 100%.
Yeah, and I just think Canelo just he does such a good job at like analyzing who he's gonna fight, and like if it goes to the later rounds, it's just gonna be completely Canelo all the way. He does a good job of like the first couple rounds kind of getting a feel for his opponent, and
Mhm.
then just completely having that switch up in the
Yeah,
later rounds and
that body
being able
attack
to finish.
is
Yeah, vicious.
it's so vicious, and people don't realize like that one punch, that left hook paralyzes the opponent. And I'm not even just talking about if
Yeah,
it lands. It's just you have to keep that right hand. You can't throw your right hand or you're going to get countered. So he
right.
basically takes away half of your offense by just throwing that hook, even if he misses. So it's crazy. I really can't believe it. Um, who do you have in the Tyson Fury? Just kind of switching it up. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua.
Ugh, the big fight that we all want to see.
I heard today they actually sent out a contract to sign. So
Oh, what?
yeah,
That's
apparently
exciting.
apparently Eddie Hearn was saying that there's a contract out for the fight. So that's
Well, I
that's
really can't
exciting.
wait. Yeah, it's super exciting. I don't know. I really feel like it can go either way. I'm really just like most boxing fans. I feel like it
Mm,
could just go either way. But if I had to pick, I will pick Fury. I
yeah, me
really
too.
like I
I
really like Tyson Fury. I just think he just would be able to outbox him, outclass him, and just do the thing. I don't know. I could see it going either way though, so it's a tough one to pick. But
eh,
I
I
would
mean,
ride Fury.
I I'm a big Tyson Fury fan, so I'm gonna ride with Fury. But if you make a case for Anthony Joshua, he's been in there with guys that are really, really high quality. He's fought Dillian White. He's fought Vladimir Klitschko. He fought Andy Ruiz. He's been in there with really, really solid guys. So if he were to
Right.
upset Tyson Fury, I wouldn't be too surprised. And you're right. It's as close as 50-50 of a
Yeah.
fight. I like Fury. If I was a trainer, I would probably want Fury because he's a little more versatile in terms of like
Hmm.
his height, his power, etc. He can do both. But Anthony Joshua, like I became a fan after he lost to Andy Ruiz. Um, I like the way he kind of bounced himself back up, dusted himself off after the loss, and you see him getting better, which is what I like. You see him
Yes.
utilizing his movement a little more, not trying to be a bodybuilder. You see his body different. You see he's more like a boxer's body, more athletic, more limber. You see speed. He's like at one point for that Andy Ruiz fight, he was like jacked, but
Right. Right.
that doesn't win you boxing matches. So I kind of like
Right.
the approach.
Exactly.
I like that he's addressing a lot of his flaws, and it's it's gonna just be fun to watch, honestly.
Yeah. No, for sure. I really can't wait. So the fact that you said that there may be a contract out and then we may have like a date soon, that's pretty exciting.
Well, you know how it is nowadays, especially with the 135-pound division. People are just
Oh yeah.
saying stuff, and then you don't even know what's real, what's not. So I'm not gonna get too
We'll
excited,
see.
but evidently, Eddie Hearn said he sent out the contract. So
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
well, I'm glad we're finally able to get this going. I also wanted to kind of let you like have a second to kind of shout out your socials and whatnot if people want to kind of follow you and your journey and because you have a very interesting Instagram and your socials are very interesting. Like the ERTV, yeah, no, they are.
Yeah.
Like I follow and it's cool that you get to talk to a lot of different artists and like I also get to see the sparring that you have with like Maureen Shea, Maureen, right?
Yeah,
Maureen Shea.
Marie Shea, yeah. She's awesome, by the way. She's like, kind of one of my main sparring partners. And it's really a blessing because, she has her accomplishments in boxing. She's been doing this for a long time, like a real OG in the sport, especially in women's boxing.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
I always like, I'm really humbled to be able to get in the ring with her and just work on what I need to work on and also just be able to give her work as well. Like, it's really a blessing. And there's not that many women boxing, even though, like we were saying earlier, like,
Mhm.
it's hard, but I'm just glad that the sport is growing. So, hopefully we see more changes in women's boxing with like the timing, just like the way that we're promoted. Because I mean, look at like the MMA girls, like they have a lot of success. And it's like,
Exactly.
honestly, girls can freaking fight. And we
They
have
can.
some of the best fights, period. Like, not just in women's fighting or women's MMA, women's boxing. We have some of the best fights, period.
I
So
totally
women
agree.
can fight. And I
I
really, I really hope that it continues to grow more and more and we have more opportunities. And this is why like I really want to use my platforms to just let girls know like you could do, you don't limit yourself, because for a long time I did. I started my media page and my media company was doing that and always thought that like I wasn't able to do both. But when you find a balance, when you really want something, you're really able to do it. It's just a matter of like prioritizing. Plus also I just want to say, like, there's so many athletes that do more than just what they do.
true.
You have a lot of athletes that have their sport and then they go off into different venues, and it's possible. It's
I
really,
agree.
really possible.
I agree.
So
But if you
yeah.
put if
Go
you
ahead,
put
sorry.
no worries. If you put the effort that you put in your media company, you're a hustler, I could tell. Especially now that I'm doing more content. Like I just started kind of getting into it and I'm like, wow, this girl has a whole bunch of like a whole media company doing her own thing and then training and doing all these things. I'm like, bravo, because you are putting in the work and I think you're gonna be successful. Um
Thank you.
and like I've seen the sparring with Maureen Shea, and of course you can't post everything because, again, like I was telling you before, many girls tell on themselves before fights, and then you have like all their flaws on display, and it's good that you're kind of showing people more or less that you're really about it. But I'm sure you put a lot of work in, and I don't know if you want to shout out your social, tell people what they want, and also shout out your boxing club or MMA club or any of that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I learned not to like I ended up deleting a lot of my training videos because, and I don't ever post like, or I don't always post when I'm at the gym, because there's days that I'm at the gym 3 4 times, 3 4 different sessions or like
Mhm.
4 hours, and I'll post little glimpses here and there, but I'm in there definitely putting in the work. But you guys could definitely
Because
follow me at the Evelyn Romo on Instagram, Twitter, and then my ERTV media page. We post a lot of music news, current events, sports news, all that good stuff. And yeah, just shout out to my gyms, Jupiter Boxing Club, Jupiter Jiu Jitsu. I've been training a little bit with Derek Santos, so shout out to him. And then also Combat Club, where I go sparring there. So yeah, those are the gyms.
that's awesome. And just a heads up, as a trainer, I look. So if I know we're gonna fight somebody, or like when I look at the USA Boxing, like who's in our pool for a tournament, I go on Instagram right away because people
Got
post,
to. Yeah.
and yeah,
People,
like they post, and it's crazy how much they tell. Like they just show everything they have. Um,
everything. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's why I'm like, I'm not really. No, I don't want to. Like, if they really want, they can go. Fight is on YouTube, and then they
Mhm.
want to go. All right, but I'm not going in there and flaunting like what I do know and what I need to work on.
Well, thank you again, Evelyn. I'm sorry about earlier. I know my dishwasher situation was kind of
Oh,
frustrating.
it's okay.
But yeah, thank you so much, and I'm glad we were able to do this.
Thank you for having me. I had fun.
All right, you
I
too.
can't wait for the episode to drop.
Yeah, I'll get it up. Probably either tomorrow or like a little bit after. Actually, tomorrow should be good. Like tomorrow morning, I'll definitely have it.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right, Evelyn.
And
Thank you so
keep it
much.
up.
Thanks.
Go Boxing
Trying.
Podcast.
I'm trying to do the 100 episodes in 100 days. So
I love it.
I'm trying. I'm trying. All right. Be well.